Everybody, welcome to the PMI Western Idaho Chapter monthly meeting for January, New Year, woohoo! And we got a lot of stuff going on tonight, so we're going to jump right into our monthly updates and reports out from various people, and then we'll get into our event and our presentation for tonight. So, Ben, I think you are up first.
I am. Thank you, Craig. So we have some new members, and this is since, I believe, since December 1st. And one of our members should actually be here, Amanda Phone. I believe we have also that have joined us is Jenny Shank, Marissa Clark, John Whalen, Mir Selimovic, Katie Davis, Joe Reichel, Ina Zarapova, David Hees, Jamie Jones, and Charity Jensen. Welcome, all new members. And so we hope, next slide. So like previous slides, if you've been to previously monthly events, our certification ratio is holding at around just under 80%, which is fantastic. And that compares to other areas at much lower certification. We're still in competition with South Alberta, Canada. So next slide. So that's great. And, with 2 out of 3 of our members holding a PMP is just way cool. All right, the newest PMPs to the group is Ryan Beckman, Josh Harbacher, and Dulcie Rota. So welcome and congratulations on passing that very difficult exam. Fantastic. And Lonnie Wood recently passed her DASM, and I don't know, you'll have to forgive me, I don't know what that one stands for.
So Ben, that's Discipline Agile Scrum Master, I think.
Fantastic. Way to go, Lonnie. Thank you for the refresher. We have a lot of anniversaries. Many, gosh, I think I want to say it was 11 one-year anniversaries, which is great. Lisa Alford, Brian Bailey, Jennifer Barnes, Madeline Bell, Dempsey Boyanapali, Jonathan Caradona, Maria Cervantes, Lisa Cook, Linda Funk, Stephen Graham, Elizabeth Johnson, Brian Muck, Jacques Nadeau, Jacob Odom, Rennie Ondos, and Christopher Wilson. Congratulations on your anniversary, and thank you for continuing to be a part of PMI work. To Godfrey Cesar Ochada, Don Royling, Thomas Romano, Heather Westfall are celebrating their 5 years with us. David Heald at 10, Jonathan Littlehill at 15, and very notable, Rebecca Tomek, our former VP of Finance for last year, is at 19. Mark Stute is at 21, and a big shout out to Barbara Malone, the founding member of PMI WIC. Congratulations and thank you for 20 years of continued renewal of your membership.
Great.
Wonderful. All right, not to forget, we offer Project Bytes, which is a digital learning platform to provide free PDUs in 20-minute video audio segments. They're updated weekly and are a tremendous value, and they're free for PMI WIC members. So if you want the the secret sauce password, feel free, please contact me at vp_membership@pmiwork.org. Over to Colleen. That's it for me.
So, Craig, this is Cheryl.
Yep.
Colleen did text, and she's still having some technical difficulties. And so maybe you'd like to speak to the election process?
Sure.
Yes.
If I can do this. So, as I think everybody knows, we are in the middle of an election process. We do this every year. Our board rotates, 3 on, 3 off. Some years now it's 4, but we do that to maintain some consistency in the board. So we have coming up in this year's election a VP of Marketing, VP of Communication, and VP of Professional Development. So they are all up for renewal this year. And Colleen, as our past president, kind of facilitates this process. And so we are in this first bucket down here with the at the bottom row. We're soliciting membership availability and candidates for these positions. So if you are interested at all in any of these, particularly, reach out to Colleen and let her know. We're trying to get the submissions kind of locked down by the end of February 28th. And then we will go into March with reviewing the applications and such, and then we will have a vote sometime in April or May. We can figure that out exactly which day that is, and then we'll announce the new board members in June. So that's the process. Again, if you're interested in those roles, please reach out to Colleen or anybody on the board and let them know, and we can get you in the process. All right. Michelle, are you going to speak to this?
I am. Good evening,
Okay.
everybody. You will hear me continually ask for a social media volunteer, an absolutely fun role for an individual who's willing to post on Facebook. Content is provided, brainstorming is provided, support and energy around it. You earn PDUs for this activity. Please reach out to me one-on-one should you be interested. It's a lot of fun. We've made a decision as a board to invest our social media exposure in LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. We are at 1,160 combined followers across all those platforms. And with fast trajectory growth in LinkedIn, we'd like to encourage the same on Facebook. And if doing the social media volunteer is not you please post, share your experiences, comments, and pictures about what it is to be a project manager. And if you're not able to meet live meetings, and this is being recorded, please subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can review past lunch and learns and other membership meeting events. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And a note, and I think there's going to be a number of these kind of roles that we're going to talk about tonight. But these are different than the VP roles. So if you're not up for jumping in as a VP and on full board, there's a bunch of other stuff you can do for the chapter. So if you're looking for a smaller way to contribute, again, reach out and we can hook you up with the right spot for you. All right, Karen. Oh, and I'm going to go on mute since we're in the same room and we don't want to freak people out.
Karen, you're on mute.
I did unmute myself. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So the finances, you can see that we're holding steady at around 67,000, well, just under 67,000. Again, that's where we ended the year. We kind of overall, just so everyone knows in terms of how we ended with our actuals versus budget, we actually came in really close at, I think, just over, I think it's around $1,500 net income. So we were pretty square there. So that was really really good. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say. We have our budget for next year, for 2023, or for this year. If you're interested in any of the finances or any of the details, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to share what I can with you. There are no secrets. Yeah, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Karen. We get back to here, slideshow. We're rocking it. Okay. I think, Cheryl, you want to talk about future cities?
I do want to talk about future cities. So I just want to let everyone know a little program update. This year we decided to be a platinum sponsor. So Michelle and I did a handoff today, and I've got the vertical banner. We'll be taking that down on Saturday and displaying that at the Jordan Ballroom and for 400, 500 people to see, which will be awesome. Future City, for those who don't know, it is a Discovery STEM program, and they've been sponsoring Future City competition since 1993. We have been sponsoring about 8 to 9 years, and what we do is, along with PMI, we partner to award the best project plan, and that's a special award to one of the teams who will essentially show us that all the 4 components that they have to submit for their project plan pass muster and then some, and so they'll win the special award. And typically in the past, we've come very close, if not right on the nose, to award the special or to award the special award of the best project plan to what ends up being the winning team of the competition. So, it just it makes perfect sense that if you have a great project plan, you're going to end up with a great result. And so, always fun to see that. So that happens this Saturday. We have 6 special award judges joining us on Saturday to determine who that winning team will be for our Best Project Plan Special Award, and looking forward to it like we always do. Lots of energy in that room, lots of fun. If you didn't get to help us out this year, please look for volunteer opportunities next year. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Cheryl. A great way to get involved in the chapter.
Absolutely. And we have some more opportunities coming up, again, with professional development. This is our mentor-mentee services program. It is new. We just are wrapping up our pilot, and we'll be kicking this off in April. And so you'll be seeing more information coming out from the chapter asking for involvement as a mentor or a mentee. And then we'll be putting mentors and mentees together, hopefully to run April and May. And then we'll do a reporting period, have a little bit of a break, run it again in the fall and then in the winter. So we'll have 3 sessions of mentor-mentee relationships. And I was hoping that Colleen would be able to speak to her experience pilot as part of one of the pilot mentor-mentee pairs. But with her unfortunate speaker, Mike, I'm looking to see if she's putting any comments in the chat. I know that she's enjoying it, having a great time. And in fact, she and her mentee are actually going to continue their sessions after the pilot is over. So that's great. So more details coming in April. Stay tuned.
Thanks. And Tanisha, are you going to speak to this slide for PDD? Or
well, of course. Hello, everyone. We are so excited that the 2023 PDD is just a few weeks away now. It will be held on March the 1st. So we encourage you, if you have not already registered yet, get registered, register a friend, bring some folks. It's going to be an awesome educational experience and some fun as well. Our keynote speaker is an author, trainer, and comedian, Megan McCalb, and you won't want to miss it. There are some awesome breakout sessions, great topics. And so all we need is you. So we encourage you to join us March 1st for PDD, Professional Development Day, held at Boise State University.
Thank you, Tanisha. All right, there's some other upcoming events. I don't know who's speaking to this slide. Is that you, Cheryl? Or I can?
Yeah, no worries. So February 8th, Lunch and Learn. As always, our Lunch and Learns are virtual, and our friend Yaquan Holloway from, I believe it's Atlanta, Georgia. She's joining us again. She is amazing. For those of you who have attended her sessions before, you know she is an eloquent speaker, very knowledgeable, and just she teaches classes as well. So she does a great job of, I think, making the topic digestible, as it were, even if it is a very technical topic. And this time around, she's talking about risk management, which is something that I think we as project managers always need to be attuned to. So if you've got time, please register for the upcoming Lunch and Learn February 8th. Again, they're held from noon to 1, and they're virtual. So just grab your lunch, sit at your desk, tune in, and grab yourself a PDU for free.
Okay, and we also have coming up in February, so a month from right now, is our February networking event, which is going to be in person. So we have to actually leave the house for this one. It's going to be at Legends on Overland again. And it's going to be actually just a networking event where we're going to not only connect with members of the chapter, but also look at ways to get involved in the chapter. So again, this will be another opportunity for a PDU, and also to get some really good information about what each of the VPs do and what we're doing in those kind of verticals. And if you're interested at all in doing that, getting involved, or just having some free food, come on out in February. And Ben, do you want to speak to the, or is Tammy here to speak to the food bank, or? I can do that also. As I think most of you know, if you don't, you do now, that we partner with the Idaho Food Bank, and we send teams 3 or 4 times a year to help pack up food. And so we had, we've done this for a couple of years now. So it's Friday, March 3rd from 3 to 5 p.m. at the IFB warehouse. And you actually earn 2 PDUs for this. So you're earning PDUs and helping the food bank. What could be better? So hopefully, if you're interested in that, reach out to Ben at vpmembership.com or VP, help me out, Cheryl. Volunteers. Thank you. All right. And we got some nice presentation. Tanisha, do you want to introduce this while I switch slide decks?
Of course, happy to. Welcome everyone to our presentation tonight. This is going to be a panel discussion where we will recap and provide some takeaways from the PMI Global Summit that a few of us attended back in December. So it was held December the 1st through the 3rd. And the 4 of us, Karen, Craig, David, and myself, will give you some highlights and hopefully spark your interest to attend both the PDD that is coming up again on March 1st, as well as perhaps venture out and plan to attend Global Summit 2023. So with that said, are we ready? I can't see if my whole, if all the presenters are off. have their cameras on?
I can't either. So Cheryl, are we all here? David, Karen,
I'm
me,
here.
Tanisha?
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
cool.
All right, cool. So we have everyone. So let me just start by telling you what the PDD was. And I'm sorry, not the PDD, the Global Summit. See, I'm all about PDD. The Global Summit was held in Vegas this year, December the 1st through the 3rd, as I stated earlier. There were over 140 different subject matter experts and speakers, over 140 different educational sessions. There was also an exhibition hall, which had, oh my goodness, let me think if I can figure out, over 50 exhibitors plus bonus stage sessions. All in all, as I mentioned, it was a global event. So there were about 3,300 attendees at this event. Between Cameron, myself, David, and Craig, we tried to split up into different tracks and kind of cover a lot of different ground, getting a lot of experiences. I should also mention that one of the additional highlights that they had here was they did have the opportunity to do some service work as well. And so there was, I think the day before, you could come in and do some service projects in the community. And so that also was a great experience. So with that said, that is kind of the highlight of what the Global Summit was. And it was awesome to be in person. We had 4 keynote speakers. I didn't mention the keynotes, but there were 4 keynote speakers. And like I said, Craig counted them up. So it's 151 breakout sessions. I know that there were over 140. And you can still register for the on-demand portion of the Global Summit. You can register through January the 31st. So you can head out to the PMI Global Summit website if you are interested in attending any of the sessions, which we do have one of the session speakers here with us, and he will be presenting at our upcoming PDD, Chris DeBella. So if you want to get a preview of him, encourage you to go out and register for the PMI Global Summit and earn some PDUs out there. It was an amazing time. And they had great tracks, lots and lots, like I said, of educational sessions. All right. So, yes. So, and this is kind of how it was broken down, right? So there we go. So you see that. So the first one said, I don't know, power skills. Yes, power skills. There was power skills. There were business acumen. There were ways of working, and then I think there was another one, right?
No, just those 3.
Oh, okay. So I guess they all went into those. Like I said, it was so many sessions. It was kind of unbelievable, right? And a little bit overwhelming because we were like, oh my goodness, we had no idea that they had that many sessions, but it was amazing. One thing that you would not do is get bored or, not be able to find something that you would be interested in, because there were tracks for, your professional, your professional self, your future self, ways to improve yourself. There were tracks on project management and different types of project management. There were tracks on how to improve your chapter or how chapters are interacting. There were tracks on volunteerism overall. And, what does diversity and volunteerism look like? So you name it, there was probably a track for it at this PDD. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to my panel. So happy to have all of you here tonight. And let's start with just your overall impressions of the summit. So let's start with you, Karen.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Since I had issues before. Well, first of all, it was pretty overwhelming since this was my first global summit, and being there with over, what did you say, 3,500 fellow project managers. It was pretty amazing. A couple of things that I really appreciated One was meeting other professionals, other volunteers in their specific chapters from all over the world. I mean, I met someone from Australia, someone from Puerto Rico, someone from Russia. I mean, they came from everywhere. And it was really interesting to me to hear all of the different perspectives, what was going on in their chapter, in their country. So that was pretty amazing. The other thing was, and this is just kind of a fun fact, wear comfortable walking shoes. You are walking from one session to another, and it felt like miles between them. But kind of a pro tip there. But the sessions were amazing, and something that I came away with also was that the presenters were from other chapters. So this is something that we can do. I mean, if you as a member are interested in presenting at PMI Global Summit, you can submit and perhaps present at the next Global Summit. I mean, our very own Chris DeBella was there, and I'll talk a little bit about his session later, but this is something that we can all get involved in.
Thank you, Karen, for sharing. And yeah, we should be clear that this was not just chapter leaders, it was chapter members as well. And so it was a great mix of people. So David, why don't you share your overall impressions?
Yeah, perfect. And so it's a good question, I guess, to lead into my talk, because I'm from the industry, not on the board with our local chapter or anything. So I was coming in really geared towards trying to get industry knowledge on project management, program management, and everything. But I did a good job as long as you have a plan. You could see they provide what the different tracks are in the kind of a summary of the speakers and what they're going to be talking on. And as long as you go in with a plan and a backup plan when those sessions gets full, I think you can really get a lot out of it. Really good opportunity. They provide a lot of space for professional networking. Also, they typically have a lot of the industry sponsors that are out there. So Microsoft or other folks will come in and kind of explain some of the tools, concepts, talk about what other pieces of the industry are using as they are developing their programs, which I felt was really valuable. Also, I'd say kind of overwhelming at times. We walked into the awards gala and I lasted about 10 minutes of strobing lights and, fancy, stuff and dancing. I was like, hey, this feels a little bit like high school prom. So I didn't last everything. I kind of left for that, but it does have a good mix of I think, trying to introduce fun in that environment, which they did a good job with that. And then my takeaway from it is to prepare better next time, because National Final Rodeo was going on in Vegas that week. And I brought my cowboy boots, but I didn't bring my Wranglers. So I felt a little bit out of place at times too.
Thanks, David. And Craig, what were your overall impressions?
Overall impressions, it was huge, right? Just echoing what the others have said. There were so many people, and so the 151 or whatever they were breakout sessions was really kind of overwhelming. I've been to North America limbs and R1 or Region 1 sessions, and obviously this was just a lot bigger, a lot more people, a lot more things to do and choose from, because this is only a 2.5 day thing. So you got 3, 6, 9, maybe 10 or 12 things you can fit in out of the 151. So you really have to pick. And then like David said, you have to have a plan B, because you're in line with 500 people who are trying to get into this session. So a lot of people. I did not realize it was open to everybody. So you don't even have to be a chapter member. We bumped into some students and some other people who just thought this would be they were looking for something to do, kind of, which is weird. But you have just all kinds of people there, and so it was excellent in a lot of ways, kind of overwhelming and just over the top in others, but it was good.
All
right. What about you, Tanisha?
Oh, I thought I shared my overall
Oh,
impression.
well, maybe you did. Okay, I was just.
Oh, maybe I'll just sum it up. I thought it was great. I love being in a space where, there's lots of people like-minded. Everybody was very friendly. The sessions were quality, at least the ones that I attended, were quality, well put together. I don't know if that's everybody's experience, but the ones that I attended were very professionally done. And so great learning and great interaction with other PMs or people who, even are aspiring to be PMs or trying to learn about what a PM is. So I thought it was great. And it was a lot of people. All right. So we're going to give you some highlights from some of the sessions and the tracks that we attended. So Craig, let's start with you. Give us, now we told you it was over 150 sessions, right? 151, Craig counted them all up, 151 sessions. So obviously we can't tell it all, but here are some of the highlights from the sessions that we took the most away from.
Yeah, thanks, Tanisha. And it is kind of a mixed bag. Karen mentioned that, you can send in white papers and just do your own thing. And I actually went to a couple of those, and they were okay. Not to just give a false impression that everything was just perfect. But there were a couple that were like, okay, I get that you don't do this for a living. But the content was good, and it was I think well received. But a lot of the sessions are just put on by people who are like expert in their field, right? They make a living explaining the content. So a lot of them were really good. Two of them that I was going to highlight. One was a session on cognitive diversity. So I know that diversity and inclusion and that is part of our kind of core values now, and it's making its way around. But I hadn't really thought about cognitive diversity much, the title, the diversity your team isn't thinking about, is just how. So this woman was like off the chart, kind of type A. I just just a lot of energy, really great communicator. She packed way too much into an hour, but she did it well. And this was really talking about how people think differently, and we know that if you've been in the business very long. But she was really talking about how people come to a team or to a project, and they really they have like thinking preferences. So some people think in ways that clarify problems, and some people ideate, right? And some people are really good developers, and they can figure out how to do something, and other people are talking about how to implement it. And she just really talked about how people gravitate to like some of those things, right? And it's not that people can't do all four of them. People do all four of them all the time, but it is where you're comfortable and your preferences are. And the point was that as you're putting together teams, think about how people approach problems, what they're good at, what they get energy from. We talked about introverts and extroverts, and how it just some people get just energized by a situation, and other people are just like totally depleted in the same situation. And people think that way too. So the point was that the teams do that. We should recognize those things, and don't hate people. Somebody's really is really good at clarifying. They're going to be asking questions about why we're doing this and how what's the background, and they really want to have clarification and ask a bunch of questions. And then you get to the person who does the ideation or the developer, and it drives them nuts because this person's asking questions, and what we should be doing is building something. Right? We got to build it. So again, putting the team together that works with people's strengths and work problems, not work work the problem, not kind of work against each other. So I thought it was great that she did that. The other one was Our Brain, the IT Killing Constraints We Never Consider. What this was about was really about why projects fail. And he started by saying, that 70% of IT projects end up failing in one way or another. Either they completely fail. He said 20 to 30% are total failures, that they never deliver anything, and 50 to 70% of IT projects deliver less than they were supposed to. And the costs of total failure, this is numbers from 2020, was like $260 billion for projects that failed, IT projects. But the ones that only partly failed, that cost 1.8 trillion, because you're now stuck with maintaining a half-delivered thing and the old stuff and fixing the stuff in between. So anyway, the point was failed projects are a big deal. Why do they fail? And it's usually around the communication piece, right? We don't understand the requirements. And the cool thing was that the understanding, the science in this space is all around your brain and how the brain hears things, right? So it's kind of like the phone, we sit around a circle and tell each other something, and by the time it gets back to the first person, it's nothing like what that person said, and that's and we humans kind of understand that now, is because how we perceive things. We have models in our head, and if we don't understand something, our brain tries to figure it out and put it together in our head. So what David may describe to me, if I've never actually seen that thing, my brain is kind of putting it together based on what I'm hearing, but it would have nothing to do with what's in his brain by the time it comes out of my brain. So he spent a ton of time on this stuff, and it was really interesting. Just how our brains think about things in stories. And that's how we remember stuff. That's how we understand the world. But stories aren't very detailed, right? So if you're trying to get everybody on the same page and create something, unless it's you've got this down and you understand that people are maybe talking about different things when they say the same thing, you got to watch out for that. So probably took way too long on this. I re-looked at all the slides this afternoon. I was like, oh yeah, that was really cool. So anyway, if you're interested in either one of those two things, everybody had little QR codes, and you can get in touch with the people around those topics.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. Oh, I am next. So awesome. So the two sessions that I decided to share about are courageously authentic leadership and empathy in being an empathetic leader. So for courageously authentic leadership, some great takeaways that I thought that the speaker, which her name was Tina Parker, you can follow her on LinkedIn. She's a professional. She goes around and speaks on these topics and is educated in this space. But one of the things that she talked about was how to be a courageously authentic leader, get remarkable results without burnout. And she talked about the wiring in our brain and the power of positive affirmation, the power of the way that we view things, and the power that is behind viewing things from a negative versus a positive, and how that kind of impacts your brain and the way your brain chemistry works. I thought it was great. She also talked about igniting our superpower, which is this ability to lead from an authentic place and to move away from self-sabotage, from resistance, and really just leading from a place of authenticity, which, I would say perhaps could be a struggle at times for some leaders, right? You're kind of trying to get in a box. Everybody's putting you in a box. And this really encouraged you to kind of embrace who you are and refine that. 4 key kind of C's that she had was clarity of purpose and vision. That helps us to direct our attention. Courage, that we cultivate courage when we step into the unknown and take action in our greatest ideas. Curiosity, shifting into curiosity versus judgment creates greater opportunities, and the quality of our questions dictates the quantity of our answers. So it is okay to be curious even as a leader. And then the last one was connection. And connection, she said, builds trust and exists when others feel seen, heard, valued, right? And that there is an influence there, that when you create an atmosphere of trust, you can influence your team and those that you lead. And so those were some of the kind of key takeaways. She also shared some things that courageously authentic leaders do, that they turn vision into action, that they embrace smart risks, that they pave the way for new possibilities, that they foster empowering engagement and capitalize on strengths, and that they create a ripple effect of value, which I thought was really good. So like I said, there is a lot more that she shared in that space, but feel free to go out to PMI Global Summit and get some information on that. The second one that I wanted to share on was being an empathetic leader. And this session was a really, really good session. It was led by Sunny. I don't think I can pronounce his last name, but at any rate, you can go to PMI Global Summit and you can find his session. He's also a professional speaker. And he really shared about what empathy is versus what we think it is. And I found that to be quite insightful, just in the words that we choose and how we respond with empathy. So empathy is not, suck it up, buttercup, right? Or, yep, I've been through worse, or you've been through worse, right? Empathy is really about communicating that you understand where the person is and giving them space. Like, that is their reality, where they are, what they're dealing with. It might not be hard for you, but for them, this is a difficult situation. And being an empathetic leader acknowledges that, right? And gives them space and values their feelings in that space. So it's not always about trying to fix something, but it is really about making sure that you hear and that you restate and that you are providing some type of validation to the person's feelings so that you can help them to create a path forward. And I just thought that was really good, because when we're, as project managers, we're always interacting with people, whether you are a leader, right, or not. If you're a PM, you're always interacting with people, and people are always going through something, right? And so you're always getting the download of what people are going through. And so, suck it up, buttercup might not be the best response all the time. Sometimes it's, I feel what you're saying. I understand how you could feel that, because I might not understand how I could feel that way, but I understand how you can feel that way. Or it seems like this would cause you to feel, so those type of statements where I'm not, taking away someone's power or their ability to express how they're feeling, but I'm validating that that's true for you. And, I'm here to support you. So those were a couple of my key takeaways. We'll move on to Karen.
So a lot of the sessions that I attended were around what other chapters were doing, and similar things that we're doing within our chapter. So you heard about the mentorship program. So I attended a session around mentoring, what other chapters are doing around mentoring, how they're also interacting with their local universities, which we're engaging with Boise State as well. They talked about sponsorship. How do you gain sponsors? And not only did I learn things from the session, the folks who ran the sessions, but from those around me, those that I sat with at the table. Like I said, I talked with this one guy from Australia around sponsorship, and he talked about some of their sponsors. I mean, they had some pretty like global companies sponsoring their chapters. So that was pretty amazing. It was just really eye-opening to me to hear what other chapters were doing, talking about marketing for chapters and just the resources that PMI Global has for our chapters and learning about those types of things. So those sessions were really interesting to me as a chapter volunteer. Kind of what can we do to further enhance what our chapter does, and what our chapter does for our members as well. So those were a lot of the sessions that I attended. But I also want to highlight a couple of other sessions that I attended. One was on an airport redesign. That was a small country I believe it was in South Africa. I apologize, I can't remember the exact location of it, but it was a pretty small airport, and they were going through and they were going to retrofit the entire airport. It was in pretty bad shape to begin with, from what I recall. And what was interesting to me about this one was that it was a construction project, and the person who was running it actually went to the PMBOK, and someone told them about the PMBOK and said that might be a good way to run this project. And so they went through the PMBOK and went through all of the areas and really consulted that as a resource for running their project. And their project was also run during the height of the pandemic as well, which actually proved to be beneficial to them, because they didn't have a whole lot of travelers coming to their country and coming through that airport. So they were able to shut down specific areas and work on them ahead of schedule. But again, the interesting point to me in that session was, for me, my professional career has always been mostly around software development and software projects, but to see and hear someone use the PMBOK resource for that type of construction renovation project was really interesting to me. Lastly, I want to highlight, again, I talked a little bit about this earlier, Chris Bella, who is our chapter member, and he has his own consulting firm. He did a session around leading without authority, and I thought he did an amazing job. He talked a lot about kind of influence and influencers, which I thought was really interesting. Kind of knowing who are the influencers in your organization, and they could be, depending on who you are, they could be different people, and they could be positive influencers, and they could be negative influencers. I think most of the time when I think about influencers, I think about the positive side, but people who might have kind of a, I hate to say maybe a negative attitude, can also influence an organization as well. So that's just something I think to keep in mind, that there are positive and negative influencers. He talked a lot about approaches to influencing, and the different ways you can influence. And I can see it in my head. I apologize, I didn't write them down, but there are different ways of influencing. He had a model of influence that I think he talked about how we kind of do that intuitively already, but he had a really nice model of influencing. And then the last piece that, again, that I thought was really interesting was kind of how we respond to different personalities. Different people respond differently, based upon what their personalities are like. Maybe they're more direct, and so they need a more direct response. Maybe they're a little bit insecure, so they may need a little more coaching. So there are different ways to respond to different people. But really, a very informative session around influencing. So those were my key highlights from the sessions.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. All right, David, share with us, what were your key highlights from some of the sessions you attended?
Thanks, Tanisha. So just wanted to highlight 2 sessions that I went through. The first one, see on the screen, managing a jumbo-sized project portfolio. And what this was Amtrak. They've got about 32 million passengers a year, 3.3 billion in annual revenue. So large company with a large portfolio. And then they benefited from the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law that got implemented about a year and a half ago. They dumped $66 billion into our rail infrastructure. So they already had a large portfolio, got even additional projects added to that and additional funding. And we're kind of going through how they matured as a project management organization or portfolio management from a low level maturity to a higher level of maturity. So they talked about just their projects that they had managed. So, traditional construction, IT, safety, you ask for it, they've got it. Using agile, waterfall, hybrid methods. They really are trying to blend all of these type of things into one, which I found super interesting just for the work that we're doing. They talked about how 6 years ago, so not too long ago, they started from really segmented project delivery. So projects would be done in an individual business unit, and that's as far as it went. Lack of standardization. Everyone was doing things differently across the board. A very manual process. It's not being automated, where you had any kind of portfolio viewpoint on it. And then the inability to manage things at a portfolio level. So you just really have this siloed environment where, resources don't mix and, can conflict and contradict in a lot of cases. So they used something I'll drop in the chat here, but it's the PMI's project management maturity, process maturity self-assessment. So it's a piece that goes from level 0. You can do a self-assessment, start at level 0, which is basic PM awareness, to level 5, which is a world-class project organization. They came in 2016 and started at a level 1.3. Didn't start at the bottom, didn't start at the top. And then they said, hey, we don't need to be 5. They don't need necessarily, it takes a lot of money to be a level 5. So they said our target is a level 4. That's their final goal by 2026. And then just stepwise work through the process to get to that level. What they did is they created layers of a PMO. So they've got an overarching one, which is an overall enterprise level PMO that has strategic decision-making visibility for their senior executives. Layered underneath there was our functional portfolio management groups, which is where you have your resources that are actually starting to get realigned out to the projects to accomplish the work. You've also got some business unit visibility of that portfolio. And then down to the project team, which has got managing your scope, your schedule, your budget, your resource management, and at that more micro level with that. So they talked about the tools that they developed, the portfolio management tools. They've got really cool dashboards. They were using Power BI. They're creating kind of a custom-made one that they're going through and develop. That was neat to see application of tools that I've heard about in a more broad application. They talked about the gates that they've got. They've got projects that go from conception all the way through to approval, multiple gates along the way that they would kick a project out if it doesn't pass through a gate appropriately. They talked about a need to really enhance their project management skills. They found that when they walked in, it was just inconsistent understanding, inconsistent terminology, and lack of trained project managers. So that was a big effort that they went through. I think the first year and a half was really to get everybody on the same page with training and bring them up to speed. And then, they talked a lot about scalability. So one size doesn't fit all. They're going to create their policies, their standards, which is near and dear to my heart because I have to live with them every day to be scalable. Small and easy projects don't necessarily need to go through the same rigor as large and more complicated, complex projects. So creating those policies and standards, policies and directives, whatever you want to call them, to where they can be scalable and support the work that's occurring out there. And what attracted me to this one is, my background in the construction industry, but also I went to the PMO symposium. So in 2019, they had a PMO symposium in Denver, and Amtrak had a similar type of presentation. It's matured since then. It was fun just to see the maturity from 2019 up to 2022, just to see them continuing that process and doing good things with a large portfolio. So that was Amtrak and what they covered. The next thing I was actually kind of stumbled on. So they were, you've got these certain tracks that you go through, but you've also got stages that they've got where they do a more informal presentation. They go through and talk about new stuff, new concepts. Sometimes vendors come in and share stuff. This one was actually PMI talking about a new credential that they've got out there. So it's a construction professional in the built environment projects. So PMI CP. So I guess our Excel spreadsheet is going to have to add a new, little credential out there for people to get. But what they did, I talked to one of the guys who really stood it up and led through it. A super knowledgeable guy. And what he said is, hey, we want to make sure that we're pulling in the construction industry, construction professionals. We've done a really good job of maturing, other parts of project and program management. We've, put in Agile. We've, really pulled in a lot of those processes, which has matured project management, but also, seeing a desire to pull the construction industry back into PMI more. So they developed they actually partnered with industry and said, come on, help us create the material, help us create the exam, and just a really good partnering effort with folks that were already out there to create it, because the idea is that industry would invest in it. They'd send their folks to it, that they would learn something, get something out of it. So really wise the way they did it. It's 7 e-learning courses. So right now it's all online. When I talked to them, there might be the desire to do those in person in the future. They wanted to get it out virtually first, and then maybe take a look at the in-person as an option later. You get 7 e-learning courses, 3 of those which you can get micro-credentials, which are valuable in some settings. It still has an exam, so you still have to go through like a PMP. You still have to go through an exam to pass here, in an application period. It requires 3 years of experience. I'll drop the link in so you can get more information about it if you want to. But the courses, in a nutshell, cover communication, metrics, performance management, talk about modern technologies, innovations that are out there to help manage a project, change order management, contract and risk management, project lifecycle. There's a lot of just neat stuff that I guess hit me because it's stuff that we want to make sure that our project managers are learning and benefiting from. Full transparency, I haven't taken any of these courses, so they sound great. I want to go out there and see. We'll probably check them out, at least our organization, try to understand if it's a good fit for what we're trying to do for training and everything. But it was neat because it wasn't something that I'd seen, something that I had been looking for. It's neat to see PMI actually providing some of that training. That's it. Thanks.
Well, thank you, David. And if you do, or when you do evaluate this new credential, we'd love to have you back to share on maybe your thoughts and your perspectives on those things. So we'd love that. So let us know, David. We'll bring you back and you can tell us firsthand or maybe secondhand if it's just your team, right? You can get some feedback. Maybe do another panel with your team and have them come in and tell us what they think of that particular credential and certification. So thank you again for sharing. Do we have another slide, Craig? I don't know.
Yeah, so I know some of you are kind of work the takeaways in with the impressions. So we did have this takeaway slide, though.
Yeah, I think as we're doing the takeaways, I know that Chris DeBella is here. He is speaking for our PDD. He was a speaker for the PMI Global Summit. While he's not on the panel, I'd love for him to chat with us about what his overall experience was as a presenter, because maybe he can share a rather unique perspective with the folks who are joining tonight or who might be listening to this webinar a little later on, or they can look in the chat and kind of see what he thought. So Chris, if you're out there, we would love to hear your take on being a presenter at the PMI Global Summit. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we can look at some of these takeaways. So, Craig, why don't you walk us through a couple of them?
Okay. And there's maybe some technical difficulties getting him on the stage, but
yeah, maybe he can just put it in the chat. That's why I recommended it.
Yeah, we have
about getting him on the stage. Tool
limitations, but yeah. So, if that's going to be working in the background, we can talk a little bit about the takeaways. We had met as a as a panel a couple of times prior to this, and kind of walk through what we're going to do. And the idea was that the first impression, overall impressions, were a little different than the takeaways, right? So, we talked about all the things that impressed us and how we reacted, but things that were kind of like takeaways. We talked about the global reach and the representation. This wasn't obviously a chapter thing or a region thing or just a North America thing. This is just global, and you really felt the kind of the global sense of the people that were there were obviously they were all over the world and different languages going on, and the different experiences. Well, sorry, that's the second point. The global reach, the representation of everybody, and then the diversity of the experiences, largely because it was a global thing, and all of a sudden you're not just talking about people in the U.S. or North America, right? Now you have a really different experience and a different perspective about project management and just the approach to PMI and the chapters. Part of that is how chapters are engaged with themselves, but also like in the community engagement. So PMI major push for the past couple of years on social good and social being part of social kind of things that benefit communities and benefit not just within our PM structure, but the things that are designed to help people, right? And so just hearing some of the things, some of the sessions I went to were about that, and we are fully invested in that kind of thing. I think from where we are in Boise, Idaho, or the Treasure Valley, Western Idaho, we do things like the food bank, right? We're involved in Rake Up Boise. We do other volunteer kind of community events, and that's great. That's what that's where we're at, and we're doing stuff. Other areas, they were talking about countries that are kind of not well developed, and you have floods come in and take out entire communities. So one of the chapters, I can't remember where it was, but they were talking about how they kind of organized themselves and went out and were finding these flood victims. And I was like, dang, that's kind of a leap from filling food baskets. But at the same time, it's they're there doing their thing, and we're engaged as a PMI group. The professional development, all of the board, from the things that we're doing all the time with mentoring and PDDs to being involved at a kind of a elementary school level, playing games that teach kind of organization skills. Chapters are doing all kinds of it. And also just the chapter leadership and the volunteerism. So there was an element of PMI and how we're structured and how can we do better at leadership in our own chapters. What are the best practices and how do we get people involved? So there's just a lot of stuff as I think we came back. To me, the event itself was kind of overwhelming, but coming back and especially working with the panel, kind of thinking through some of this stuff, I was like, there was a lot to take away. So,
Yeah.
talked a lot there. So I don't know if our panel members want to speak up if we got.
Well, maybe what we can do is we can pause on the takeaways for just a second. Looks like Cheryl helped us to invite Chris DeBella to the stage. So we appreciate you joining us impromptu to kind of share your experience as a speaker at the PMI Global Summit. And so, well, let's just start with, number one, his presentation was amazing. Karen and I attended. And so we're looking forward to hearing you at the PDD coming up in March. So Chris, with that said, why don't you walk us through your experience as a presenter at the PMI Global Summit?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you actually for allowing me to hop in. As a speaker, I just want to touch on David's comment there on the right. The escalators sucked. It was a horrible nightmare getting everybody, 3,000 people up one set of escalators. But aside from that, from a speaking perspective, I was actually, it was kind of like a mixed bag of emotions for me. It was great to have a full room of over 300 people, right? It was fantastic. I thought logistically, I think they could have filled more. I guess there was like 250 to 300 people that were turned away that couldn't get in. And I thought there was plenty of room in the room to kind of add chairs. But from a speaking perspective, I thought it was really well. And it was great to meet some of, the chapter presidents and members from our chapter who have been nothing but fantastic. Quick shout out to Michelle on that, because she's been great to me even before I moved up here, because I reached out before I moved up to Boise. From a speaking perspective, I thought it was pretty good. I thought I've attended. I don't know how many of these you guys have attended. I think they've gone downhill for the last 3 to 4 years, personally. Again, unpopular opinion sometimes, but I don't think they're as good. I don't think the presenters are as good as they have been in the past. I don't think PMI vets properly on some of these speakers. I think there are a lot of great subject matter experts, and some people might argue that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But I think the quality of the speaker, I think, has kind of gone down a little bit. I'm not going to harp too much on that, but I do think there are a lot of great speakers that were on the docket this year. I do have to slightly disagree with the mapping of things and having a roadmap set, because there were a lot of people that found it difficult that I was talking to in the conference hall to navigate. And I think me and Craig even had a conversation about trying to figure out how to get to certain sessions and add them to your phone, right? And I think there could have been a little more transparency or a little more discussion from PMI on that aspect. I also do not believe I am speaking at the PDD as of right now.
Oh, you're not? I'm just making that up. I'm so sorry.
I think it was kind of the plan, but I don't know what happened, and it kind of fell.
Oh man! Well, maybe we can get you for 2024 or something. You were a great speaker, so I'm sorry. I guess I've just been saying the wrong thing. That's how good your session was, right? That I just want everybody to hear you again. So we'll have to find another way to bring you in before the 2024 PDD, right? That's what you're saying. That's what I hear.
Do you guys have? I'm always down to speak. I mean, I'll go speak on the street corner to anybody who will listen. So, do you guys have any feedback that you provide to Global as a regional chapter?
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris. They did send out, I think, our own individual feedback request forms, and so I think that
I don't think we got one for the chapter.
Right, not as a chapter, but as individuals. They did definitely send those.
I provided feedback, and I don't want to get into too much of a discussion. I've provided feedback to PMI, and if there's a way that we can actually get something to them, like impactful statements of how to maybe change things a little bit for next year and moving forward. Because like I said, as somebody who's gone to them for quite a while, I just don't think they are as great as they once were. And I think they need to be, because when they were great, they were fantastic.
Yeah, see, and that's unfortunate that I'd love to talk about later or offline. Yeah. What you attended, because the ones I attended were very high quality, right? Like the people, this is what these people did for a living. So they were masters of their domain that they were speaking of. So, I guess it might have depended. I know Craig said some of them were, a little more kind of walking through their own projects and things like that. And I could see, where that could be a challenge. But yeah.
I think that's a good point, though, that you made, Chris, that a couple of things are kind of are together on this. One, this is open to anybody, right? PMI, chapter people, non-PMI people. It's open to everybody, and I think something to consider as people who are maybe listening to this conversation. Anybody can go to this, and so I think because anybody can go to it, it kind of it I think behooves us to maybe educate ourselves a little bit about what these are like. Our conversation about not being able to figure out which things on our, you had 150 of these on the little, iPhone. So, that's one thing, is that you got a lot of people there at various, levels of knowledge about the topics, but then you have so many things. And I think that probably does speak to the vetting, right? Because I highlighted two that were excellent, and they were just excellent sessions. I went to a couple that weren't, right? That it's like somebody just had an idea and submitted it, and they said, yeah. I'm like, okay, that was kind of a waste of my time, because it wasn't very good, to your point. But what I think that means is that if we go in knowing that you're going to get that variety, just in your own mind, when you're looking through what you want to attend, just be careful. It's you have to be thoughtful about what you're going to do, and with so many choices, it is a little overwhelming.
Agreed. It is. And, the good thing is that for all that are listening tonight, everybody starts somewhere, right? And so, I would say work on your material, maybe, bring it to the board. If you're thinking about, maybe going out in that way, maybe we can, give you a dry run and give you some pointers to really help you bring a quality presentation to the PMI Global Summit level. But everybody starts somewhere. And I think that it's amazing that they do provide opportunity for people to share on their projects, their experiences, and in the domains where they are considered experts.
And actually, Tanisha, I did, come away with that thought that, our chapter could actually do this.
Yeah, right? I mean, people could start right here, right?
Well, I mean, specifically things like the work that we did with Wyken this past year.
Yeah,
that is dead center where a lot of these things they were talking about. How do we engage with veterans groups or with our community groups, and the response we got, the volunteers we had that participated in that. I think that's a great thing. I'm encouraging people to submit that, maybe for North America or maybe next year's global, because I think that went really well. We have people who can really speak to it, and I think other chapters would be interested. So things like that, and like you're saying, anybody has something to say, that can be in the mix too. But I think things that we do as a chapter would be dead center where they'd be interested in.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And as a chapter, we're always looking for people to share and to speak on their maybe their own projects, the projects that they're working on, their experiences from that, or their professional experiences. And so there's another opportunity here within our local PMI chapter to, right, kind of get your feet wet, maybe before you go to Global Summit, right? Maybe start. And so consider speaking at one of our evening events. And so there's a shameless plug to do that as well, and always welcoming new speakers for our PDD. So thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your experience. Again, you really did have a great presentation. So we're glad that you were here tonight. And if you want to hear his presentation, go to the PMI Global Summit website, click the on demand and register there, and then you can hear his presentation. So with that said, I think we want to cut to the things that are coming up. So I've seen some questions out there. What's next, right? So of course, our PDD is next, our PMI Western Idaho chapter professional development day. That is coming up next, March the 1st. Get registered, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, come on out. It's going to be a great educational opportunity for you and an opportunity to order, get some PDDs as well. So PDUs, excuse me, as well. And then we have kind of the list. Somebody was asking, when is the next Global Summit? For 2023, the next Global Summit will be in Atlanta, Georgia in October 25th through the 28th. I encourage you to attend that. You know, if this was interesting or piqued your interest, or if you go back and listen to some of the replays at the Global Summit from this year, I encourage you. It was quite an experience. So it's great to be with over 3,000 like minds in a room. So there are some of the other things that are going on. With that said, Karen, Craig, David, any last words?
Final words. That hopefully not my last words.
Well, for tonight, okay? Like, you can have words after this, just for this.
No, yeah, I would encourage if you guys want to go. I mean, some of these, obviously PDD is open to everybody. I know that the North America limb is really just board members and leaders in the chapters, but the Global Summit, it's worth your time if you want to go. Obviously, Las Vegas was a lot closer than Atlanta, but I'm sure they'll put on a good show.
Yeah, and I can imagine that they'll have a virtual option as well, like they did for Global Summit 2022. So that's always an option as well. You know, we didn't, you know, I don't think nobody really talked about the keynote speakers. I thought keynotes were all amazing. You know, their experiences. I know we talked a little bit about them early on, but for me, that was worth it. You know, so you know, I love the keynote speakers. They really just I don't know, get me excited about the profession, about what's going on in you know, out there in the industry. So and then, by the way, if you didn't know, so all of those little QR codes, that takes you to each of their LinkedIn profiles if you want to connect with them and follow them that way. That's all available there.
Yeah, I just had one thing, Tanisha, I forgot about since you're on the slide. So the fourth speaker over, Jessica Matthews, used to also say Magic Johnson. He was supposed to be one of the kind of closing presenters there. And so I think everybody went in, and we found out at the time that he wasn't going to be there. And so he had not gotten on. There's details beyond it, but the result was he wasn't able to get on the plane that morning to be there. And Jessica did a phenomenal job. You know, she pulled her dad out of the audience, or you know, a couple hours preparation, and they just did a really phenomenal job of delivering just kind of the closing remarks and telling the story of his life and really the great takeaways. So but I think that talks to the quality of the presenters there. You know, they can turn on a couple hours notice, completely revamp what they're going to talk about, and just do a really phenomenal job of executing. And I think that's just because they're bringing quality of the keynote speakers is there. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good call out, David. Thank you for highlighting that. And Karen, you're right. We might not have gone into that in the keynotes in great detail, but they were really, really, really good speakers, really good topics, very relevant. Well, I think that we have reached the end of our presentation. Craig, is there anything else? Is there anything that I'm missing? Anything that we were supposed to do that?
I think we are a wrap, actually. I don't know if I can stop sharing There we go. Yeah, I think we're a wrap. Thanks everybody for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it and got some out of it. Do remember the February events, and if you're at all interested in helping out with the chapter, either in a large way or a small way, we'd love to hear from you and get you involved.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Everybody have a good evening.
Thanks.